Welcome to the Recess Life Podcast. This is the place where we explore play and what it means to get back to your inner child. I'm Louise, your host. Join me as I chat with teachers, entrepreneurs, artists, and thought leaders about how we can live a life of more play and impact. Let's get it started. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Recess Life Podcast. This is Season 4, Episode 7, and happy December. Can you believe we're in the last month of 2020? Last December, just a year ago, I was in Mexico, gallivanting around to several towns and cities, traveling with friends and staying in hostels, going on tours to see all sorts of interesting places. Went to a lucha libre match, which is a Mexican wrestling match. It was such an amazing time. And now I am sitting here with you about to tell you about today's episode, which, is not too shabby, all things considered. I am very grateful to be able to do that and that I've had this podcast and you, lovely listener, listening on the other side. So welcome. I am starting to do some end of the year reflections. Something I do every December is join a course called the Holiday Council. It is run by the lovely Molly Mahar, who is in charge of a company called Stratejoy, which is all about helping women get back to their authenticity and help them reclaim their essence. She's wonderful. And the course that she facilitates, the Holiday Council, is a 3-week course that is all about reflecting and letting go of the previous year and visualizing and scheming and setting intentions for the new year. I've done the course several years now, and this year feels particularly different. I feel like in some capacity, all the other years I've been in a fairly stable, steady place in my life where I was very much on a growth trajectory in my life. She takes us through this exercise where she has us reflect on what cycle of life we are in. So there are 4 main cycles. They are growth, mastery, unrest, and destruction. And I feel like every year has been mainly a growth or mastery cycle. One where I felt like I was very much growing and moving towards this trajectory with my career and in my own personal growth. Growth is never a straight line, but it very much felt like it was always moving in that direction. My career for the last few years has really been growing as my business as an event producer. I feel like I was expanding a lot in my own personal growth and letting go of a lot of limiting beliefs that I had inherited from my childhood and through, childhood trauma. So I very much, for the past few years, have felt like, I'm in a good spot. I'm just rocking and rolling. But this year, it is very clear that it is a year of unrest. And it was one that I did not expect to happen in this way. I always visualized that if I were to get into a state of unrest or being unsettled, it would be because I chose that. It's because I chose to make some big change in my life, and it would be strategically figured out. Well, as we all should know by now, life doesn't exactly work that way. So on the very first call, when I was reflecting on this year of being a cycle of unrest, I really had to stop myself from being unkind or hard on myself, because a lot of times I think of a cycle of unrest as being something where I'm regressing or I'm falling back into patterns, or I'm going backwards, and all the growth that I was working on has disappeared. And it's not true. It's so not true. This year I've been triggered and going into thought patterns that I thought I had grown out of, or I thought I had evolved past. I thought I had grown past certain beliefs and actions about myself and about the world. And this year has shown me that that stuff never completely goes away. We're always going to have to be learning about ourselves. Like, for example, I've fallen into comparing myself to others that are really seem to be rocking and rolling this year. Well, I feel like a lot of my life has either become a standstill or has fallen apart in a lot of ways. I've seen others that are forging ahead in their careers or their personal life, or setting down roots in a way that feels like I am way behind. And I've had to really stop and reflect on where these feelings are coming from. It means that I have work to do, and that hopefully I will have an even deeper understanding of myself on the other side. So in reflecting on what cycle of life I'm in, it was just also a reminder that other cycles are to come. After unrest typically comes destruction, which sounds a lot scarier than it may be. Destruction really just means that certain things are falling away to make room for what is to come. So that might mean letting go of a job that wasn't serving you anymore. It might mean letting go of a lifestyle or a relationship that was holding you back to make room for something new, which then turns into a cycle of growth. And growth is exactly what it sounds like. Growth means that you are moving towards a trajectory that you are really excited about, that feels aligned with you. And then that moves you into mastery, which is all about being in your genius, being in the flow of where you're supposed to be in life right now. Those are the cycles of life, and we are going to visit all those cycles multiple times in our life. And how lucky that we get to do that. How lucky am I that I am in a cycle of unrest right now, so that a cycle of destruction and growth is on its way. So I hope that this can be an encouragement to you, that whatever cycle you're in, celebrate that, because it's moving you closer to where you're supposed to be. I'm making it sound super easy and fluffy, mainly because I don't have enough vocabulary to express the depth and the nuances of how challenging all these different cycles are, especially unrest. But just know that I'm here with you in the thick of it. I frankly am not sure what destruction is going to look like for me when it does come around. There are several things that I think I need to consider pivoting or letting go of, and I'm not sure what that looks like yet. So I'm here with you. So I understand if you are going through some angst right now. So this state of unrest has very much been a lot of the things that were in my life that have fallen away. So my business that I was very busy with prior to the pandemic, where I was running live events, that has very much fallen away for the time being. All the travel I was doing for work and my lifestyle is being put on pause right now. The day-to-day things that I so loved, like socializing with friends, going to live music and dance classes, they very much were a big part of my life. So because a lot of those outside things have fallen away, it's created a state of unrest on the inside for me. And I've just been left with myself most days. I don't have my career and the travel and all the lifestyle things I was doing to put me in that state of happiness, contentment, exuberance, and play that I was really used to. I really thrive in a fast-paced, exciting lifestyle. So when I had control over my life looking that way, of course, I was happy and exuberant most of the time, right? And what's been really challenging now is that I have to figure out how to be with myself and feel good. And it sounds simple, but for someone like me, it's not. Someone that's very used to a lot of stimulation, being around lots of people. Those are the things that naturally put me in a state of play, in a state of happiness. So it's been really challenging to figure out, how do I be with myself and be okay with a certain amount of unrest, but how do I be with myself and find ways to be happy and playful and content even without all of those outside things that were driving me before. So it was so appropriate for me to talk to today's guest on the podcast. Her name is Shawnrey Notto. She is a sex and intimacy counselor. She is a somatic sex education coach. She is a dancer, a workshop leader, and all around just this amazing human being. Earlier this year, someone that I follow on Instagram, Nisha Moodley, had posted about Shawnrey, and I went and checked Shawnrey's Instagram out and saw that she was putting on a free workshop about embodiment, and it would incorporate dance and all these other movement-based activities. And so being a mover, dancer, fitness enthusiast myself, I signed up, and it was such a different and moving experience. Shawnrey facilitated the workshop on Zoom because that's where all workshops and gatherings are happening right now. And she took a group of us women through this experience of being with ourselves, with movement and enjoying our bodies and just enjoying all the yumminess that our bodies are capable of. I feel slightly shy even saying that because it's something that is so not familiar to me. It's not something that I'm able to speak to very comfortably. I'm good at being silly in my body, but being sensual and embodied is very challenging for me. And part of her process includes play. It includes all these other elements that we'll talk about in our episode, but play is a big part of embodiment and with enjoying our bodies and being with ourselves in a way that feels good. So I knew I just had to have her on the podcast to talk about her perspective on play and to talk about what it means to incorporate play in a way that helps us to feel at home with our bodies. We talked about what embodied actually means. That might be a word that is unfamiliar to some of you. We talk about what play means in that context. And we also talked about the overlap of sensuality and sexuality. We talked about why, for me, sensuality has always been a challenge because it's been so conflated with sexuality in our culture, and it very much was spoken about that way in the environment I grew up. And it made it so that sensuality was very uncomfortable because it meant sexuality, and sexuality is bad or was bad. So talk a little bit about that topic. So it was a very wonderful, yummy conversation. That's the only that I keep coming back to that word yummy because that very much was how I felt after speaking with Shawnrey. At the end of the episode, I'll share some changes I've made to my life to become more embodied and at home with myself. You don't want to miss that. Once again, I'd like to thank Brian Lavelle, who helps me on the sound on this podcast. So all the interviews sound super crisp and the audio sounds clear. Thank you, Brian. You can find out more about him at adultlearnerblog.com. Without further ado, here is Shawnrey Notto. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Recessed Life podcast. I'm so excited for my guest today, Shawnrey Notto. She is also a Bay Area resident, and she just brings this beautiful perspective that I am so excited to dive into, having taken a couple of your virtual workshops and now getting to speak with you. I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
Yay, me too.
So I thought to get to know you a little bit better, I would start with a few rapid fire / icebreaker questions, and then we'll dive into this conversation.
Okay.
All right. So the first one, Shawnrey, what did you want to be when you were growing up?
There are a couple of things I wanted to be when I was growing up. One was a brain surgeon, and the other one was a spy. So
very different things.
Yeah, I mean, a brain surgeon because I wanted to fix people. I wanted to help them. And the spy is because it just seemed like it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And I wanted to act.
Like you see in the movies, the super spy movies.
Yes.
Yes. I feel like media influences a lot of what we think we want to be when we're growing up.
Yeah, totally.
I love that. If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
Any superpower, I'm going to go with the good old tried and true flying. I would love to be able to fly. I used to always have dreams of me growing wings and then lifting off because I'd want to see everything and easily be able to go places.
Yeah, be able to look above everyone and travel from place to place without an airplane.
Yeah.
Do you have any play idols? So how I describe that is anyone that you look up to in the world for how they show up in a creative way or the way they show up in a play-based way.
Yeah, there's actually one artist that I love. She's a singer. Her name is FKA Twigs.
I love her.
I love her because she's just so quirky, just doing her own thing. She just she just is always pushing the edges and it's just so uniquely herself. So and then when she's singing, she's tap dancing and pole dancing and, and other kinds of dancing and getting all these other collaborators. So, I mean, just to love her, her playful, creative, doing her own thingness.
Yes. No one else is like her that I've seen in the music industry. Funnily enough, a former guest that I've had on the Recessed Life, she was going to be in a commercial that FKA Twigs was creative directing, and she's a pole dancer, the person I had on my podcast, Paula. And for some reason, I guess the commercial ended up getting scrapped, but she filmed it and everything, and that would have been such a cool commercial to see. It had pole dancing and all these other creative elements that you would imagine FKA Twigs to have. I can't remember what product it was for. Anyway, so
that's so cool.
Yeah. Okay. And last question. If you could go back and say something to your 10-year-old self, what would it be?
It would be keep on playing and believe in yourself. Because keep on playing and believe in yourself. Who you are and how you are may be different, but it's what's going to make you happy and successful in the end.
You just mentioned being different. Was there a moment when you were young that you recognized that, or where does that thought come from?
Yeah. I mean, I never felt that I was different. I always just felt like I was myself. I didn't realize I was different until other people like family members and friends would say that I was different. And so I used to daydream a lot, and I used to, it's kind of just really go there. And then my family would say, Shawnrey, stop staring like that. Stop looking like that. Be right here, come back. And they were like really concerned about it. And they're like actually kind of upset that I could like go into my own world like that. I mean, I was there, but I had other things that I'd rather do.
You're in your own little world.
Yeah. And so like, like my thoughts or how big and expressive I could be, be like that, that's weird. And so, so it always came from the outside. I always thought that I was fine and normal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But it was always someone else that was telling you you were different.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Were you ever made to feel wrong or ashamed of that?
Oh yeah. Yeah. By my family or, school, or definitely peers, peers at school really didn't understand it. So yeah, it was something something I felt like I struggled with in a way. It's kind of like I had to be myself despite everyone else or anyone else's approval. It's like, well, this is what I choose this. I choose me. I choose to wear a bunch of colored pencils in my hair. I choose to wear opposite colored socks. I choose to do dance. I choose to, read a whole bunch of books. I was like, this is what makes me happy. This is me. And I'm just going to have to do it.
And that seems to have carried you through to where you are today, if just based on my observation, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you talk about any instances in your life, maybe 1 to 3, that really shaped how you show up today, whether that be in the work that you do or how you show up in this world?
Yeah, totally. One of the biggest things that shaped my life, a lot of times I find that it will be like difficult things. For me, it was difficult things that shaped my life. This very first one was when I was 16 and I had a mentor for gifted and talented African American youth. And this mentor was, I learned all the things about the ACT and the SAT and how to get forward in the world, how to be more successful. There were things that I just didn't know, from my family. And this mentor, I would go meet with him. And then at some point he started to molest me. He started touching me. And it was really confusing. It was awful actually, because here's this person who it was kind of like a gatekeeper, the gateway to here's this life that I wanted. I wanted to go to a good college. I didn't have the steps on how to do that. And then here's this person who I was meeting with, and it turned from meetings about college and college applications and scholarships to to touching, having the conversation, and then like afterwards, all this, horrible touching. And so then I ended up getting really depressed that year. And then my teachers called me aside and told me that I needed to drop an honors class. They just figured that I was taking on too much responsibility. So I dropped a class, and then they told me to take a creative class, and it was either going to be dance or choir. I chose dance. And the first assignment that we had in the dance class, because I came on already halfway through the year, was to create a solo. And it could be about anything we wanted. And I ended up creating a solo that was an expression of all of the rage and the fear and the anger and the confusion and all these things that I felt inside of me, while this was happening, that I didn't know how to express with my words. I didn't know how to tell anyone. And so I made this dance, and it was to the song, The Prince of Egypt. That movie was out at the time. It's like, Deliver Us. And so it's like, literally about, delivering me from this confusion and like, getting out of the slavery of that. And then also owning my body, owning and celebrating my body for me, being able to touch my own body for myself. And that yeah, that experience is literally what has taken me to everything that I'm doing now. Because dance, creativity, that exploration was healing, and so that's what I share with people, that that experience. Another thing that was a really big shaper in me was mindfulness meditation. So I had been depressed for years, and dance and movement allowed me to express, but it was actually the mindfulness, and the slowing down, paying attention to my breath, and just being with myself instead of like wanting or trying to escape, um, that really brought me an even deeper sense of healing, and actually allowed me to forgive my parents for doing the best that they could with what they knew how. Allowed me to really take ownership of my own life and what I wanted to create. So honestly, those two things, dance and mindfulness meditation, are the two biggest pillars of my of what changed my life, and also they are the things that I use a lot whenever I'm teaching.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. I'm just picturing you in that solo, that dance. And what I really hear and feel is that you took ownership back of yourself and of your body, and you expressed outwardly all of the feelings and I'm sure the rage and the sadness. It needed to come out of you, and you
Mm-hmm.
expressed it outward. And did you have any dance experience prior to that? I'm so curious. Or was it just was it the impetus for you to get into dance?
Yeah, I mean, it was really the impetus to get into dance. Before then, I was in theater, and I would do like some musicals, and so I learned like just some like kind of musical esque type of dancing, but
Mhm.
that is not, it's like the pas de bourrée and like sachet and the
Right, right, right.
it wasn't expressive. It was like
Jazz hands.
jazz hands, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so this dance, it was very different. It was like, for me, I literally felt like I found my voice, because I had been doing theater for years, but I was always so scared and so nervous. I was like, my stomach would get sick before every time, and I was like shaking. I was a big ball of nerves. And when I discovered dance, it was literally like that was a channel. It was a channel for, like sometimes for me, theater like would get me so in my brain because I was trying to memorize everything and trying to do the right thing. But dance was just like this, just open up and be and explore and play and yeah.
A big exhale.
Yes.
Yeah. How did you make that choice? I think because whenever trauma happens, we all have a choice to internalize it and to fold into ourselves and to become this ball. And
Mhm.
and then I see others, or I hear of others like yourself, who lets it explode out of them and express it out of themselves. And how did you make that choice? And was it conscious, I guess, to make that choice to
Mm.
let it express out of yourself and to carry you through to where you are today?
Yeah. You know, I mean, I'm really grateful that my teachers took me aside and and told me to take another class, because I wouldn't have done that. We grew up in a society that says push, 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 do, just like force it and make it. And I was on that trajectory. I was a model student. I loved academics. I did theater and I did those things. But I was still very much about success and about showing up in that way. And so when that opportunity came, when I was in the dance class, I don't know, she said that, and then I don't know, just something happened, and it was just like I felt a freedom. I felt a freedom to express and be. in a way that no other medium or thing could allow. When trauma doesn't have a safe space to, to come out, to come into the light, I think that's when it closes in on itself, and we close in on ourselves, because it's not safe. And it's not safe. There's not the medium, we don't even know how. And then dance presented itself in this, I didn't have to say what it was. I didn't have to say, hey, this is a dance about, about what was happening to me. It could just be this very big, outward, playful expression with only person knowing the meaning of it was me. It was mine. So it was like, it was simultaneously out and inward. And so I think that, in terms of, I think that's a very important thing to have with anything around shame or trauma, that it has the safe space to express itself. But yeah, that it just has a safe space to express itself.
Yeah. This container
Yeah.
that it can explore and explode in a safe space.
Mm-hmm.
And dance was that container for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
When did you realize that this was work that you wanted to do for others?
So one of the most, I didn't even make this connection, but there are two things that happened. I got the opportunity to participate in the vagina monologues in my freshman year of college. And reading Eve Ensler's script and being in this group of women was so amazing. It was just so amazing how cathartic it was to be able to be with a group and to be talking about something publicly that usually had so much shame and fear and all the stuff. So that was like a really really big thing, to be able to see like a forum, a space in which there's able to be exploration. And then later, a year later, I ended up going to Brazil to do a semester abroad. And there I saw programs and got to help with programs that were really about creating the person, creating community through the arts. And so I got to lead young girls through like embodiment and dance, so that they could connect to themselves, have their own bodies, explore their own bodies, and see who and what they are and how they actually felt. Those two things of being able to be in a group of women, discovering themselves and being able to go deep. And it's, we could be scared together, scared and uncomfortable together. Oh my gosh, I don't know what's going to happen. Oh my God, did she just say that? Ah!
And for those that don't know what the vagina monologues are, can you explain that real quick?
Yeah. So they were, back in the 90s, Eve Ensler, she did a series of many, 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 many interviews with women of all ages, all, about their vaginas, about their connection to this place, to this down there, to this secret place that no one ever talked about. And there are stories about old women who had just discovered their clit for the first time, about people who had been like molested or raped, about people who were just owning themselves and owning all their power, about people who were scared and had like really weird, traumatizing experiences happen to them. And so these monologues are compiled together, and she did them by herself. But then later on, they call it V-Day. Later on, like women from all over would come together as a group and read these monologues together, and then like choose, which one you're going to perform, and then perform it for a group, and just create awareness and conversation around things that are usually kept hidden.
Yeah, bringing them to light.
Yeah.
Can you describe for me what you're talking about when we talk about women getting into their bodies and feeling that sense of playfulness that I mean, I can just feel it emanating from you.
Yeah.
But I think for some of us, that feeling sounds so foreign, doesn't connect because we are so in our heads.
Yeah.
And can you describe a little bit more about what that feeling means and why that's important?
Yeah. So what does it mean to be embodied, I guess, is the question. So if you imagine, let's just imagine, for some reason I imagine a Christmas tree, like, and a picture of it, but a picture, when you have like a construction paper cutout of it, it's like, oh, okay, it's this little flat thing. And like, we have like a little yellow star on top of it. You see that. Like, okay, you have like the idea of a Christmas tree. But then you add to it, let's like make it a fake Christmas tree. And so now, it has 3 dimensions and you see little branches and everything. Yeah. Then let's add another layer to it where it's like actually a real tree. And, it had, and it's in your house and you smell the smell coming from it. And like there's the leaves, the pine needles are dropping and, you feel the sap and all of that. And let's take it even further. Oh, you've gone like into the woods and like, gone through like the chopping down of it and like hauling it and the heaviness of it. And then to your house and then the decorating. And so embodiment is that. Embodiment is the full experience of life, of yourself. It has all the senses, taste, touch, smell, sight, sound, plus your heart is in it. It creates memories. And so embodiment is that. And there are a lot of times that we can go through life where it's more like the paper cutout. It's like, this is pleasure, or that, and that happens because we're trying to do things right. And we've been told that, if it's too much, if you're like this really big, full grown tree that has all these smells and memories and experience around them. But then what ends up happening is we deny our own selves the full experience of our beings.
How you just described embodiment is really that feeling of being fully alive, which is also how I would describe the feeling we have when we play, aliveness. There's this way of being that is very cookie cutter, which is the construction paper cutout. And then there's that feeling of aliveness that we get glimpses of, but not enough of. I get glimpses of that and I want more of it, but it's so easy to just go back to that construction paper cutout because our society doesn't help cultivate that full sense of being very easily. How do we get more glimpses of that? How do we become that full-grown tree more? I know it's can't do that all the time, I imagine.
Yeah.
But how do we get more?
Honestly, in a way you can. I mean, that's one thing that's really cool. Remember I talked at the beginning about how when I was dancing, everyone didn't know what was happening. They didn't know why it was happening, for me. There's this dance that they saw, but there's also an internal journey, creating such a deep internal exploration experience of yourself that maybe it could look very mundane and very simple. It could be just as easy as, it could just look like you're sipping your coffee, but the internal rich, full grown, tree with all the smells and sap is, ooh, the tannins in this coffee, the milk, the heat. Oh my gosh, the experience, the memories that it's giving to me. So that is totally possible. And, in order to fit in society. Well, I think what happens is that we will look at what we think that we should do and what society says that we should do, and then just shut it all down, and I feel like that we can be on a trajectory to a world where, where we do create a society where we will be more, more outside full bombastic Christmas trees, like, putting their scent and their leaves in places. But one of the first steps to getting there, and the most important step to getting there, is actually creating that and feeling that possibility within yourself and in your own body. And I know that it is because we are all children. We're all children. And they are the masters of play, imagination, creation, fullness, bigness, smallness, detail. We're all that. We've all had that experience. And we've actually all, people have had various levels of trauma. But for the most part, if we're here, there's been some part of us was supported in that exploration of self. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. If we weren't supported enough, we just wouldn't be here. So there is that inside of us, and that's whenever I'm teaching, that's what I am. That's what I'm searching for. That's what I'm like eliciting. It's like, oh, where's that little place that, that really just didn't give a care at some point. It was really just like, yeah, I'm big, or yeah, I'm the princess, or yeah, I'm,
And you are a master at finding that. What's been hard for me lately is that those feelings you're talking about, aliveness, embodiment, sensuality, feelings that come from play, I'm realizing how much I depended on things outside of myself to feel that way. So back before we were in a pandemic, it meant experiencing the real world, like socializing, live music, events, travel. But since all of that has been taken away right now, I have to rely on being with myself to feel those feelings. And it's so hard. Being with yourself is so hard. And rather than feeling embodied, I feel numb or in my head a lot of times. It's like I don't know what to do with myself. Even once this pandemic is under control, it's important to learn how we can be with ourselves and feel those yummy, juicy, embodied feelings. What is a way we can do that right now?
Yeah, that's a really, really good one. Yeah, because it's definitely been that kind of time for me. It's been a time of deep, deep self-inquiry, deep questioning. Especially because for me, I'm single, and I don't live 100% alone. I have a roommate, but she's always gone, and a cat. And so that, but my world of interaction has been limited. I was someone who I went out dancing like quite often, and so I feel the question is like, how can we be with ourselves in a way that actually feels good? I think is what it comes down to.
Exactly.
Yeah. And for me, some of the things that I've done and that I've shared. Okay, I'm going to go really quickly to Stan. Stan is my 10 feet tall, 45 millimeters thick dance pole. And so I started playing with Stan the pole, because it was like play. Like for me, I need a lot of dance. And I was doing a lot of dance by myself. I was getting online and like dancing with other people. What I'm really feeling that this time it's not just the time for self-entertaining, because sometimes when we go out and do these different things, it's a way, it could be a way of, of not being with ourselves, and of not exactly ignoring, but it's like, okay, I can be entertained by going out and dancing, by going out, I can be taken away from being in my own head, my own mind. Mm-hmm. What I've used this opportunity for I've taken these things that I've loved doing, that usually I went over and consumed, and I've turned it into something that I can then give. So I actually haven't been dancing a lot just, for myself and doing partner dance. I have been leading dance. I've been going even more into the mechanics of what was it? What were the characteristics of dance that really lit me up? And it it was like a sense of connection, a sense of depth, a sense of play, a sense of exploration. And so then what this time has been, it's been an opportunity to really go into what are the other places, what are the other places in my life or in the life of others, when I'm on phone calls with my family or on phone calls with my friends, or even like, watching people, in the neighborhood. What are the other ways that this thing that I love, which is dance, which is actually exploration, play, depth, and connection. What are the other ways that can manifest? And in that, it created more creativity. I was able to tap into creativity because I didn't have my normal go-to solution for making myself feel good. It wasn't there. And so then I took the nuggets of that and then turned it into a journey of how else do I get this? And so it's turned out to be, I have a deeper connection with my sister than I never would have had I been able to continue to, just dance around and entertain myself. I have a deeper connection with my meditation practice has taken another turn, which is really cool. It's not just sitting, it's actually like, woo, I mean, creating joy. And then I've also been able to, my teaching has gotten better because because I'm not just basking and doing the things, I'm having to research and really filter out the nuances so that then I can share it with others. And so that's been a fun activity. So that's how I've been doing it. And it's like, I think about for others, like, how is it can you really give? Like, first connecting to yourself and feeling what is for you, feeling what gives you joy, feeling what inspires you and opens you, and then turning that around, going deeper with it, and then seeing how else can it birth itself. And it's like, how else can we birth ourselves?
How else can you birth yourself? That's all we have, I think, at the end of the day. And I think that's what we've all realized. When you take away the events and all the normal things that sort of distract us and take us away from ourselves, at the end of the day, we have ourselves, and we have to be able to lean on that and to be able to dig into that with joy, without those external things bringing that to us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, and it's not like, oh yeah, you just do that. It's so simple. It's so easy. I mean, it's not.
No,
it's not. I mean, I've gone through the whole gamut of let's say being single, right? So that's a thing to how do I turn this burning desire, which was a burning desire to create something with someone and to lean on them and to, and to have someone that I can talk to, and how do I actually turn that around and really create that energy for me? Because the thing is, that energy is there. That creativity, that love, that passion, it's already there. And that's what I've learned, in actually embracing the singlehood. I did a little game with myself. I was like, okay, here are all the things that I want. And right now it's not happening with someone else. Here are all the things I want. Here are all the ways I want to be treated. Here are all the things I want to feel, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm wanting it from this other person. And I'm thinking that the only way I can feel fulfilled is if it's coming from that person. But what I've been learning is how to really actually honor and generate that and give it to me, in a real way. Not like you got to love yourself first before you find anyone. It's no, for real, for real love on yourself, for real, woo yourself for real. Like take yourself out and say those sweet, beautiful words that you say for your honey. Say them to you and just really feel them and feel that, feel that deep love, that deep connection, and the amazing blossoming that you have. So anyways, that's been my journey. It's been awesome.
Finding that desire and giving it to yourself, or turning it into fuel
to
create something, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And once again, it's not like it's a process. It's a process. Because I mean, I'd read all kinds of things about that way of being. And I was like, that's bull crap.
Yeah. Sounds nice. Yeah. You mentioned your teachings. What does teaching look like right now for you? And what are some of the programs you're working on right now?
Oh yeah. Teaching looks like it's virtual, but it is so fun. So for me, like teaching is actually being. Whenever I get to teach, it's I'm literally like putting myself into that space, into what I'm wanting to emanate. I have to put myself and be there myself in order to bring other people on that journey. So it's not just talking head. It is embodied. It's like, it is deep feeling. And so I've been teaching us this one class called Your Body the Queen. And Your Body the Queen is all about reclaiming the feminine. And so reclaiming your passion, your play, pleasure, peace, and power. And those are all different places that power is like, that structure, and pleasure is that, like, that deep connection to your own body, and play is that open, expansive curiosity. Peace is that nourishing feminine, and passion is that moving, fiery masculine. And so those are different parts of us that, for different reasons, whether it's for fitting in, or to please our families, or to please someone else, that we tend to let go of, or to really, or to really drum up. It's like, in order to be professional, I need to really put on my power. But then it's like, oh, I didn't really get to connect with my peace and my nourishment, or maybe I forgot my play, and I haven't just felt silly in a while, and I really missed that. So there's that. And then the one that's like super I'm calling it erotic. Yeah, that was like erotic heart awakening. So erotic heart awakening is like that, but it's like, that's like a 6-month journey, and like just really going deeper and really playing around with like the energy of the erotic as something that is desire and the expression of the human spirit coming from the heart. And so like using the body, using embodiment, and connection to the heart to really feel what your human expression is.
That sounds delicious. I imagine it's a whole nother different kind of embodiment that you have to get into when you are teaching.
Mm-hmm.
Different than becoming embodied for yourself, or are they one and the same actually?
They are different. Okay. They are different. I mean, there are definite overlaps. But as a teacher, what I'm doing is what's most important is for me to be able to connect with everyone and create a safe container, create a space. And that means that I'm really grounded and centered before I get on any call. And then when I see the women, I'm really, really feeling their energy. I'm feeling like where they're coming from, like how their voice is, what their body language is saying, what are the stories that they're bringing with them. And so I'm taking all of this information and really feeling into, and then like from multiple people, and really feeling into how am I going to give them space to really go through whatever the journey is that they need to go through. When it's one-on-one, it's what one-on-one journeys are different than, than group journeys. They're both embodied in the sense that my energy is all about allowing what their experienced truth to be, and then reflecting what the deeper truth could be. Mm. And so it's very much about honoring what is. You have to honor the experience of the person, as they are. If they're feeling afraid, if they're feeling, really excited or whatever, honor that. Let it be seen. And then, for me, like how I, being able to see because I don't have to live with all the stories and the trauma. I get to see someone's beauty and feel their joy and feel their potential. And so I get to be a clear mirror for that. But in order for me to do that, I have to first really see them and accept them exactly where they are. Yeah. And then we go on the journey.
Yeah. Being what you're essentially being what you weren't really given when you were young, maybe when you were told, Shawnrey, you're so different, and why are you different? And you're essentially becoming what you needed when you were young and when you were told that.
Yep, I am. And I really learned this lesson when I was in Liberia, and I was over a program for teaching youth. And there was a young woman there. She was 14, and she was just really difficult to be with. She was just so like angry and very and kind of violent towards other kids there. And I mean, like this goes like kind of crazy esoteric. But one day, her mother came to me in a dream and told me that that you have to be there for my daughter. And I'm like, I am there for her. I've been telling her to meditate, and I've been doing all the things. She said, no, you haven't. And I was like, okay, yeah, I've been going through the motions, I've been like, breathe, meditate, express yourself, blah, but I wasn't really feeling it. I wasn't really being there for her. And so after I had this dream, I went to her and I just really just held space for her. And I was just like, I am here for whatever it is that actually is true for you. And in that, it took a while. We ended up I had like a little pillow fight with her, and, she wasn't doing anything. She's like, ah. But then all of a sudden she just like let loose and it's like, ah, and then crying and then ended up in this ball on the floor. And then what came out of her was, I'm so angry that my mother left me. And her mother had died. And the thing is, when we approach people and just have our prescription for them and how they're supposed to be, then it's like putting something on top of them. But when we actually take a moment to allow what they really are, what they're really feeling to be out there and expressed, then that allows an opening for transformation. So I felt it with myself, but then this experience with this girl, this young woman, really showed me the importance of honoring people where they are first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, before you can get to the deeper truth.
Yeah.
What does play look like in the context of your program? Because what I'm trying to experience deeper for myself is that it's very natural for me to look at play as a happy-go-lucky, gregarious act or feeling. To me, that's what feels natural. But to talk about it in an embodied way feels a little more foreign to me. Is there overlap with the sort of play I understand versus how you talk about it in your programs?
Yes, absolutely. There's absolutely overlaps. So play is so important in this work because especially like embodiment and sensuality, people will get so in their heads and then start judging and then think that it has to look this way or has to sound that way. And then all of that creates so many boundaries to who we are. I mean, as soon as we start thinking that there's like a certain way that something has to be, I think especially around like sensuality and embodiment, then there goes joy. There goes any real enjoyment whatsoever, because it's like, oh, sexy or sensual has to be red lipstick and black satin, or it's like, no.
Right.
And so honestly, some of the things I'll do with play is literally do like the silly face, happy go lucky, weird across your eyes, stick out your tongue, wave your booty, just like the most ridiculous out there things, so that you can because what play does, play opens us. Play opens our minds. It opens up our creative centers in our bodies. Like, it is, from a neuroplasticity neurology perspective, play is the opener. It's the thing that allows us to be curious. It allows us to feel safe, that it's okay to go and discover. So there will be that component of play, and that's definitely an overlap. And then we take it to another place in terms of like sensuality, and play and sensuality and embodiment turns into, so one thing you can say that, I'd say that play is big vision, being able to see things from above. It has play as the movement of air, and it is deep curiosity, and so it is bringing like a lightness to the exploration of your own body. So sometimes we can, like, especially like with embodiment sensuality, we can be like, oh, this, my stomach is like this, and we tell all these different stories about what it means for us to have a body, and for it to act in a certain way. And one level of play is whenever I lead people through like a sensual meditation, it's like, okay, like really taking that part of your body that you may not have a joyful relationship with, let's play with really exploring how it feels. So, like, feeling the texture and the touch, and there's that exploration. Play is that exploration, the curiosity. How does it sound? If you pat your belly, it's like boop, bloop, 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 bloop. Okay, just like listening to it, really just being curious, not creating judgment. So play is a place of open curiosity without judgment. And when we bring that to embodiment, to sensuality, it can then really shift our relationships to ourselves, to our pleasure, in a way so that it's not goal-oriented, but journey-oriented.
This is an edgy question for me, but I'll go here and see what you think. What's always been a challenge for me is that, I grew up very much sensuality meant sexual. You can't depart the two, so don't be sensual at all. Having grown up with my family, and also in the church, that was there was such an overlap around that. So, and sexuality is bad. Don't even open the door a little bit. So the challenge for me has been, well, first of all, unlearning that idea that sexuality is bad, first of all. Mm-hmm. But then also understanding that sensuality and sexuality are not necessarily exclusive to each other. Mm-hmm. And that sensuality is something that is in all of us and can be in everything we do. That process of unlearning, in my mid-30s is still so challenging. And yeah, I guess what are your thoughts on that journey? Oh yeah,
absolutely. I absolutely love that question, because I'm actually writing a book now about that, and I'm calling it. It's not out yet, so maybe I won't. But it's called The Lost IQ, the Lost Intelligence, which is sensual intelligence, and it talks about why is it lost, and how that loss has affected ourselves, our relationships to our body, our relationships to others, and greater relationships in work and family, etc. And so I totally come from I came from a Black, Southern Baptist, sin-filled, world. There's no hugging. It's like there is no physical affection, and everything to do with the body was a sin. I didn't know what masturbation was until I was 16, and when I asked, it was like, "You're so low down and nasty. You need to go look that up in the dictionary." And the whole the whole gamut. Yeah, and then also like this fear and terror. And fascination. For me, I had like this deep fascination with, and also fear at the same time of anything that was sexual or sensual. And essentially and the thing is, this is both our society and culture has conflated them. And so it's like, it's the chicken and the egg thing. So we're living in a society that has conflated them. But then in order to unconflate them, we have to do it within ourselves. But then we have to go in back into society that is kind of like, and so it's really when we feel really clear, it's like when we feel really clear, when we're really deeply connected to that intelligence of ourselves, then how we are and how we interact in the world and with others feels that much more clear. I feel that this sensual intelligence is something that has not been practiced. It has not been taught. And so when you have something that we don't have a relationship with, when it comes out into the world, it's like, oh my God, it means all these different things. Like, no, it's actually, you just don't have a relationship with it. You don't have training with it. And so it comes out as something that's scary and weird. And people are totally weird with it because when you have sensual intelligence training, you are able to feel nuance within yourself and see nuance with other people. That suddenly the world goes from literally being like black, sexy, heinous, all this stuff, or white purity to the whole freaking spectrum rainbow of experiences with people and with yourself. And when for me, I know, like, when I really got clear with that, I literally went from being someone who was always like always harassed and catcalled by guys, and like feeling really like, really scared, honestly, to being someone who's like, there's literally like a way of being that I am now that I just don't get that energy from people anymore. I mean, like, and it was an awareness. It was an awareness that I ended up being very like firm in who I am and my energy and what, how I'm being in the world. And like being able to be very firm with, how other people are approaching me, just like feeling a confidence. And when we that's what practicing an intelligence does. It gives us dexterity. It gives us the confidence to play in that area of life. So whether, if you learn, if you have like the IQ for like trigonometry or whatever, and then you practice that, you learn that, you increase that, then when you go into that area of your life, then you feel good. You got it, right? We don't have that with sensuality. We don't have that. And so all this, so it's very elementary. It's very, very, people have very elementary understandings of it. And so therefore the interactions are quite elementary. When I've trained women and like, bring them through this journey, like when I was talking about before, those 5 Ps, those are like really big components to having sensual intelligence, to knowing yourself and then being able to communicate yourself through your body as well as through your words and in your intention. It just like shifts things, and people are just like, oh, wow, I just was able to have this conversation with, with my partner or with my boss or with, with whatever. And who I felt I was being was different. Mm-hmm. And so then like, how you're received is different. And then also how you're receiving, the interactions is different. And that just, those little things start little by little creating new realities. So that was really long, but that's what I'm writing about. And it's just really exciting. I'm really excited about being able to break down this process so people can just really read and like just take their time and feel into it before they're like, okay, I'm ready to embody this shit. And sometimes it's like, oh my God, I'm not quite ready. It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah. It's definitely not talked about and practiced enough in our culture. And yeah, that understanding of yourself, that clarity within yourself of who you are as a sensual being, I think is something we can all stand to learn. Oh, I'm excited for this book. Yeah. And I think that being able to stand in our sensual selves without fear, without shame, that's an exciting place to be. You're just a wealth of depth. And I just love the way you articulate embodiment, because it is something that is so hard to put words to, something that is unfamiliar to a lot of us. Talking about it in the context of play is something that I don't explore enough. And I'm so grateful that your work is doing that for others and for women in particular.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so honored to, to be able to do this, because play is imperative.
Yep. It really is. It is essential to living a vital life.
Absolutely.
Yes. Oh, and I know you have an Instagram that I love following, and I love it when I love the videos that you post and your little lectures. I don't like that word lectures, but just your sharing on them. Is there anywhere else people can find you? I know you have your personal website, of course, as well.
Yep, it's my personal website, Instagram. I have a TikTok, and yep. So they're all, they're either my name, Shawnrey, which is very easy, or for right now, they're Quirky Queen. Quirky Queen. I mean, who knows what it'll change to? It's because, Instagram type of things. Like, I like quirky is because, once again, really giving that nod to the play, to the playfulness. The reason I did that, I was very specific. It's like, it's not about just like following the rules and doing the thing. It's really about, exploring your spirit, playing, being silly, and bringing that forth.
Yes. Oh, so great. And it sounds like you're working on a book as well as your programs. Is there anything else that you can share right now around what you're working on, or what your vision is for the work that you do?
Well, I mean, I'm just, those things, the little 6-week program, Your Body the Queen, the 6-month program, Erotic Heart Awakening, and this book, The Lost IQ, they're all linked to just full expression, embodiment, sensuality, and joy. That's what I'm living. That's what I'm teaching. And it's all interconnected, and that's enough.
That's plenty.
That's plenty.
You need to leave room to be able to dance with Stan still.
Exactly.
Right? You can't take up all your time. I hope you enjoyed that episode with Shawnrey Notto. I have to tell you, since having that conversation with Shawnrey, I've been trying to incorporate embodiment practices into my routine. What I've been doing is throwing on music that really gets me into a really good mind-body space. Music that really gets me out of my head and into my senses. For me, that's really slow, melodic R&B music. There's some great artists I love, like Solange, Sabrina Claudio, Division. All those artists really get me out of my head and in my body. And I've just thrown on a track and have just danced free flow. So without choreography, without thinking about what my next move is, I've just been turning on music and dancing and moving and flowing. And it might mean that I do something kind of silly, something kind of sexy, sensual, just whatever my body is called to do. And I have to tell you, whenever I do that for just a few minutes, a song or two, I feel like a completely different person. I I typically take dance classes. I don't typically dance free flow as easily unless I'm at the club, and Lord knows we're not doing that right now. And I certainly don't dance by myself. It's dance, I always feel like it's something that you do with others, or you do it in a class. And I have to tell you, there's something about dancing with yourself that just brings you home. So there are so many other embodiment practices that you can do. That's one of them. But yeah, I think doing those things helps us remember that play is not about necessarily a happy-go-lucky, high-energy, gregarious activity that you do with others. Play is about a sense of peace and being at home with yourself and being in this state of just happiness and bliss with yourself. And when I'm dancing with myself, it brings me to that feeling, that little glimmer of that feeling I have when I'm living out in the real world, when I feel playful and happy. Those are typically things I would have felt when I was traveling, running an event, socializing in big groups, listening to live music. And while there's no substitution for that stuff, I have to say, finding practices or doing things that connect me with my body gives me a little glimpse of what that feeling was like. So for me right now, that looks like solo dance parties to sensual music. For you, that could mean playing music at home. It could mean meditation, bubble baths, something that really connects you with the yumminess of life. It could mean making a coffee very mindfully and connecting to every aspect of it. There's so many things, and this is going to be a lifelong exploration for me because, like I said, embodiment does not come naturally to me, especially when I'm by myself, and especially in times like this when we are in a pandemic. So I highly encourage you to check out Shawnrey's work and to follow along with what she's up to, and especially when she releases that book on sensual IQ. I know I need some schooling in that department, and I can't wait until that book comes out. If you enjoyed what we've talked about in this episode, you can visit Shawnrey's website at shawnrey.com, SHAWNREY.com. And she also has a new course that's coming out called The Erotic Heart Awakening. I will post those links in the show notes of her episode at therecesslife.com. I'll also link to her Instagram, which is just such a fun place to explore. She really makes you feel comfortable with your own body through the content that she posts. So thank you, Shawnrey, for a wonderful, expansive conversation. And for you listening at home or on your headphones or in your car, thank you for tuning in, and I will see you next time on the Recess Life podcast.
Are you looking for more play in your life? Make sure you're subscribed to the Recess Life podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or any of the podcast platforms. You can also find the video interviews on YouTube. Don't forget to leave a review. Your feedback is so important to me, and it helps others to find the podcast. You can also follow the conversation on Instagram at The Recess Life. And lastly, you can go to therecesslife.com, where you'll find all the episodes and show notes on each of our guests. I hope this podcast helps you to become a little more playful today than you were yesterday. Until next time, don't forget to get out and play today.